And here you have an old blue little lovely diamond French rectangular engagement ring. I think you mean a lovely little old rectangular blue French diamond engagement ring. Yes, a little lovely French old diamond. No, it's a lovely little old rectangular blue French diamond engagement ring. How do you know? Yeah, I've got no idea. English is weird, and if you grew up speaking it, well, you're really lucky that you don't have to learn it now. I mean, why exactly is it a lovely little old lady and not an old little lovely lady? Well, I'll tell you the answer to that later on. But first, let me show you something. How do you say this? And now, this. What's with all these letters at the end? Oh, and this? Now, of course, there are reasons for this madness, but it doesn't make it any easier. Let's start with the building blocks of sounds in English. You know, the sounds you have to make when you talk. For example, the th sound in thank you. Now, unless you happen to be Spanish, Greek, Arabic, Swahili, or Icelandic, well, you'll probably have a lot of trouble with this one. And to be fair, th is a pretty rare sound out there. In fact, only 7% of the world's languages have th sounds. And it doesn't help that it also has two pronunciations. There's th and there's the. And then some languages don't use r like we do, or even at all. I remember when I was teaching English in Japan, I felt so much sympathy for my Japanese students trying to pronounce these letters that simply don't exist in Japanese. And there we are moaning about the Spanish r. We are not so innocent ourselves. Now, when it comes to spelling, English is a master of the old bait and switch.
What? Oh, nothing.
Middle one. Huh?
And you might not realise just how bad it gets. English will give you a spelling rule, probably a weird spelling rule, and then almost immediately break that rule. Take these two words, for example. Say them out loud. Go on. Yep, they are said in exactly the same way, to the dismay of about 2 billion people learning English around the world. But let's be honest with each other, we have a little bit of trouble with English spelling too, don't we? And even simple words are routinely misspelled, keeping the grammar police very much in a job. I mean, the English language really is just asking for it. Now I want you to imagine that you are learning a new language, and let's say that you learn it really well in one country, and then you fly to a different country where they speak the exact same language, only to find that the spelling rules have completely changed. Well, that's what happens with English, but to make matters worse, with English it's not just the spelling that changes, an awful lot changes, even if you go a few miles down the road, or up the road, as the case may be. I mean, what do you do with this? And then I have to throw in this infamous one, a famous party trick of English teachers around the world. Listen to how the OU sound changes in each of these words. Ow, o, o, oo. I mean, seriously, for one, I am very glad that I got to learn all this English stuff the easy way. If I think about how I learned these spellings of these words, well, I guess it was just from endless correction at school and lots of reading, right? But if there are any English learners watching right now, let me know in the comments how you learned to spell these words. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to tell you why English follows other languages down dark alleyways and beats them unconscious. Yeah, but first, in English, you get words that look like opposites, but actually mean the exact same thing. I mean, really, whose bright idea was this? And how about famous and infamous? Well, they're not the same, but they're hardly opposites either, are they? Prefixes in English simply don't have simple rules that you can just learn and apply. And in language learning, this kind of uncertainty is a real killer because it makes it very difficult to be sure if what you're trying to say is right. Now, how about those same but opposite verbs? Well, there is to dust, meaning to remove dust from something. And then there is to dust, meaning to sprinkle dust on something. And speaking of verbs, well, nouns can actually become verbs and still make sense somehow to native speakers. To Skype somebody, to friend somebody, to eye something. All those weird hybrid words that everybody absolutely loves, like, shall we diarize this? Verbing, as it's known, is all about context. It either works or it doesn't, and it ain't easy to know which. Now, read this sentence and guess what is going on. Who's talking to who? What has just happened? Think about it. Happy? Got it? Think it's obvious what it means and I'm messing with you? Well, think again. English is a language that makes heavy use of stress, both inside words and also at the sentence level. Listen to how this sentence changes depending on where the stress in the sentence comes. I never said he stole my horse. 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 You know, I remember when I was learning to speak Cantonese, although it was a very difficult language, I never felt too resentful of the tones that I had to learn in that language. I think because I was already very aware at that point just how illogical English is. It's all just a question of perspective. I used to know someone who taught English in Asia, and the person who recruited her, who herself had learned English to a very high level, would often say encouraging things like, just keep being the teacher that you're. And then she'd wait for the rest of the sentence. The teacher that I'm what? The teacher that you're. You see the problem? She'd learned that you are can be contracted to your, but what no one ever told her, and that you've probably never thought of, was that you can't use your or its at the end of a sentence. You have to say the teacher that you are. Simple rule, you might say, except why is it okay to use other contractions at the end of a sentence, like don't worry if you can't, or it's fine if you don't? That's all right, right? And if don't means do not, then why is it okay to say why don't you, but you can't say why do not you? Surely we are all completely insane. Okay, so you're learning English and you finally grasped plurals, and it wasn't easy. You learned the boy reads the book and they read the book. You learnt she cries and they cry. So they is plural, right? Fantastic. Until you overhear a native English speaker say, if someone reads this book, they are going to cry. They? Well, this is just how we speak. Even though it's not technically grammatically correct, using they, them, their as a singular pronoun has become so common that it's just accepted. The reason we do it? Traditional English grammar has no singular gender-neutral pronoun. We don't know the gender of someone, so we say they, even though someone is singular and they refers to the plural. And even if we do know the gender, well, we might still say they. For example, our new employee started this week. Have you spoken to them yet? And this can be particularly tricky in formal professional writing because the use of them or their as singular is often not accepted. And you're kidding yourself if you think that it all ends there with the plural in English. I dare you to learn a rule of any kind and then to try and apply it in any other context. Go on, I dare you. In English, we have far more vowel sounds than letters to express them. First, there's the schwa sound. It's a kind of weak sound that no native speakers really know about unless they've studied linguistics. But I can assure you, anyone who's tried to learn English knows all about the schwa. Look at the vowels marked on these words on the screen. They are all different, right? Each word has a different vowel. Wrong. Listen to this. About, stolen, pencil, memory, supply, vinyl. Different vowels pronounced in exactly the same way, that lazy schwa sound. It's extremely confusing for a Japanese or Spanish speaker, for example, who has to pronounce every vowel very precisely in their language. Tiene que pronunciar cada vocal con mucha precisión. See how much I have to move my mouth to get those words out in Spanish? Not in English. Unless, of course, I want to mess with you when one letter, say the letter A, can be pronounced in 5 different ways. A, or, E. The opposite is also true. A single vowel sound can be spelled with different vowel letters. They, way, may, cake, break, rain. I think maybe we might just be missing a few letters from our alphabet, don't you think? But anyway, as all of my students will know, this is precisely why reading is so important in language learning and why I teach French and Spanish and all my language courses through story. Because if you try to remember all of the rules mechanically, you'll drive yourself crazy. But if you learn in context through stories, you'll eventually learn all the rules naturally, just like you did when you were a kid. If you've ever read any writing by someone who's learning English as a foreign language, you may have noticed a common tendency to use synonyms quite freely, as though you can just go pick and choose whatever synonyms you want. For example, the word moreover gets used a lot in student writing. Shelley decided she's going to the wedding, and moreover, she'll be singing. Now, to a native speaker, this sounds weird in a casual context. English speakers rarely use moreover unless they're being formal. We might say instead, Shelley decided she's going to the wedding, and what's more, she'll be singing. But it's understandable because modern English has an unusually large number of synonyms, way more than other languages. It's not easy to get a native-like feel for choosing the right one. Give in, give out, give up, give away, give to. Now, I know that you know what all of these mean, but can you really explain the logic behind the difference between give up and give in? Welcome to the wonderful world of phrasal verbs. They're often totally illogical. And to make matters worse, certain phrasal verbs have multiple meanings. You think you know what take off means, for example? Do you? Well, take off your clothes, take off time from work, take off in a plane, take off to somewhere else. Your business might take off. You might take something off your computer and delete it. Look, one of the reasons for the endless inconsistencies in English is that it has borrowed words from so many other languages. The writer James Nichols said, English doesn't just borrow words, English follows other languages down alleyways to beat them unconscious and rifle their pockets for new vocabulary. Now, as a matter of fact, English is the world champion of borrowed words. So, dear friends, next time a foreign person speaks to you in broken English, be kind, will you? Just remember, you're probably using words that you borrowed from their language in the first place. Now, what about this lovely little old rectangular blue French diamond engagement ring that we saw earlier? Remember, you can't mess with that word order and still sound natural in English. Diamond old French engagement ring? No. Little French old lovely ring? No. See, it has to be a lovely little old rectangular blue French diamond engagement ring. And here's the rule. Opinion, size, age, shape, colour, origin, material, purpose. You knew that, didn't you? But who taught it to you? Did you ever study it? I don't think so. I certainly didn't. You have an intuitive grasp of word order in English and most likely take this ability completely for granted. But imagine learning this as a student. I mean, seriously. But to be fair, it is not just English that is a hard language. In fact, here are 5 really hard languages for English speakers to learn. Go on, click this video and get a taste of your own medicine.